Welcome. Today we're going to talk about scatter plots and lines of best fit. Now a scatter plot is just a graph that has a bunch of dots pointed on it or placed on it that represents some type of a data that's gathered from real life. Most things in real life don't follow a perfectly linear pattern. They have some variation in them. So the dots kind of vary along this pattern here, but they might have a trend. If you notice, these dots are kind of going up in an upward trend and an upward pattern. Once in a while, though, we get some weird point that sits way out here that doesn't really follow the general trend or pattern of the other dots. We call those outliers. So your first lesson is just to say, okay, it says the two scatter plots show the same data set. Choose a scatter plot in which the outlier is highlighted. You'll notice that dot right there is a little darker than the rest. So that one's definitely not an outlier. It lies amongst these points. This one here that lies way out here is the outlier. So you click on this one and you hit submit. It's just helping you recognize the pattern. Hey, look, these points look like they're coming down in this little general pattern. But this point out here kind of is offset from the rest of them. So you click this one. And as you move higher up, they're going to give you more options. They're going to give you like 4 graphs to choose from, I believe. Yep, like this. So again, just remember, they're all the exact same. If you look closely, they're all exactly the same graph. It's just which point's being highlighted. This one's amongst all these points that are kind of looking in this general trend of going down. This is the one that's way out of there. See, this one's amongst them. This one's actually close enough. Again, outliers have to be, in a sense, quite a ways away from the majority of the remaining dots. So you'd click this one and you'd hit submit. That lesson should go very, very quickly for you because you're just basically looking for the point that sticks way out, making sure you click the graph that's has that one particularly highlighted and submit it. But the next lesson is the lesson that's the most important one and will take a little longer. And the reason I'm signing this next one is it's also a very, very good review of a linear equation. Because when you're given data and you have these scatter plots, a lot of times we create an equation to represent the data's trend, and we use that data to make predictions of later on. So in other words, they give you this bunch of points, and they say this line here kind of follows the trend of the points. If you were to, plug a point into this equation when we write the equation, and that's what we're going to be doing, it would kind of tell you where the point would approximately be further down the graph. So the lesson is just saying, hey, I notice this trend's going down. This line follows that trend. It wants you to write the equation of this line. So let's review on how to do that. It's something you've learned. It's been a while, so you might need some review. So here I've put down a linear equation, y equals mx plus b, because that's what they ask it for. It says write the equation in slope-intercept form. This is slope-intercept form. Now remember, the y and the x are variables. So when you write your equation, you'll definitely write the y and the x. It's the m and the b that are numbers that we need to find. The m is the slope. M is slope, which is rise over run. So what I recommend doing is when you're given a problem like this, you take the 2 blue points or the 2 points they give you, because it says to make sure you use the points they give you. Don't use these other points. You want to use the 2 points that are actually on the line. So this point here has an x value of 0 and a y value of 9. So I'm going to write down that point, 0, 9. Remember, x is first, y is second. This point here has an x value of 9 and a y value of 4. So an x value of 9 and a y value of 4. Again, x and y. And then again, if you want to, you can say this is your first point and this is your second point. So when you go to find the slope, because that's the first step in writing the equation, is finding this slope, which is the rise over the run. So the slope is going to be this second y, which is 4, minus the first y, which is 9, divided by the second x, which is 9, minus the first x, which is 0. And then we reduce. 4 minus 9 It's going to be a negative 5 over 9 minus 0 is 9, and this doesn't reduce. By the way, if this happened to be an improper fraction, you'd leave it that way. Don't make it a mixed number. They want these slopes and numbers as improper fractions. So if it was top heavy, I just leave it. But negative 5/9 is our slope. So our equation, right, I'm going to write the y equals my slope, which is what I just found, negative 5/9 times x, make sure you write x, and then plus some b value, which I don't know yet. I still don't know what the b is. Or do I? Yes, I do. Remember, the b is the y-intercept. It's where it crosses the y-axis. Well, we can see where it crosses the y-axis. Right here on the graph, it crosses at 9. So I put plus 9. So I come over here now to my Excel, and I type in y equals, make sure you use the fraction key to do that fraction of 5/9. And by the way, it is negative, so I'm going to put the negative in front. Make sure you type your x, and I'm going to put plus 9 because that's where it crosses the y-axis. And you submit, and you've written a line of best fit. Now, we won't always be given the y-intercept, so I'm going to jump ahead here to show you one where I'm not. See, I don't know where this crosses the y-axis, and don't assume it's going to be a nice integer like 11. It might not be. So let's do this problem. The way I'm going to do this problem, let's see. I just want to make sure I leave these notes up here so we can see them. Again, I'm going to first find the 2 points they give me. We're using these yellow points to follow this trend line of all these blue points that seems to be going down. So this first yellow point has an x value of 3 and a y value of 8. So an x value of 3 and a y value of 8. Remember, x first, y second. This second point here has an x value of 8 and a y value of 3. So again, an x value of 8 and a y value of 3. X first, y second. This is going to be my second point. This will be my first point. Now I'm going to find my slope. Remember, my slope is going to be this rise over run, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I'm going to take my second y, 3, minus off my first y, which is 8, divided by my second x, which is 8, minus off my first x, which is 3. 3 minus 8 is negative 5. 8 minus 3 is positive 5. Negative 5 over positive 5 becomes a negative 1. We don't need to write the slope as a fraction. We can just leave it as a negative 1. So my equation will be y equals negative 1x plus or minus some b value. But I don't know what the b value is yet, so I need to figure it out. And now if you notice, the graph doesn't show it. So the way I calculate the b value is I'm going to use this and this unknown b with one of these points. So remember, I must go through the point 38. I just rewrote this point down. I must go through the point 38. So if my y value is 8, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this equation here and I'm going to replace the y value with 8 equals, I know what my slope is. I just found my slope. My slope is negative 1 times, and the only reason I put parentheses here is to make sure you know I'm timesing by this slope, but I'm timesing x, right? This x value. But what y value went with, or sorry, what x value went with the y value of 8? The x value of 3 did. So I'm going to put a 3 here, and then I'm adding some unknown b. I can solve this now for b. 8 equals, well, negative 1 times 3 is negative 3 plus b. I'm going to add my 3 to both sides, and I get a b value of 11. Since it's a positive 11, I'm going to come up here and write plus 11. So my equation is going to be y equals negative 1x plus 11. Now remember, you don't need to write the 1 in front of the x. So when you go to type this in, I'm just going to, but I'm typing in the whole equation. So I got to type in the y. I got to type in the equals. I got to type in the negative. I don't necessarily need to type in the 1 because it just sits in front of that x. I don't know if it would mark you wrong. I'm going to see if it would mark you wrong. Negative 1x, and then I'm going to put plus 11. So I have my slope, I have my y-intercept, I have my y, my x, and my equal sign, and I hit submit. And it works just fine if you put a negative 1 in for the slope. Again, this one gives you the y-intercept, so that's a little bit easier. So I'm going to jump ahead and do one more, and then I'll let you get to work. So again, here, the 2 points that it gives me in order to write this line of best fit for this scatter plot is this point here, which has an x value of 20 and a y value of 0. X value of 20, y value of 0. X first, y second. This second point up here gives me a x value of 60 and a y value of 80. 60 and 80. So an x value of 60 and a y value of 80, x and y. Now this is my first point. This is my second point. So the first thing I'm going to do is find my slope. And remember, slope is rise over run, or the second y minus the first y. So 80 minus 0 over the second x minus the first x, and that formula is right here. So the second x minus the first x, 80 minus 0 is 80. 60 minus 20 is 40. That looks like that reduces to a nice 2. So I know my equation is going to be y equals 2x plus or minus some b value that I don't know yet, because this line doesn't cross the y-axis except maybe way down here somewhere. And again, I'm not going to assume it comes to be some nice. I'm going to figure out what it is. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use one of my 2 points. So I like using zeros. It makes evaluating things easy. So I'm going to use the point 20, 0. Remember, this is x, this is y. So in this equation here, I'm going to replace the y with its y value of, got to go up here a little bit, with its y value of 0 equals, so again, I'm writing this equation, y equals mx plus b, but I'm substituting in my point for x and y and my slope to find b. So again, y was 0 equals my slope, which I found was 2, times, again, the only reason I use parentheses is so I know that I'm multiplying these 2 numbers together, but times x, which the x value that goes with the y value of 0, the x value is 20, plus some b. So I got 0 equals 2 times 20 is 40 plus b. So when I minus the 40 over, I get a b value of negative 40. So up here, it's going to be minus 40. So there's my full equation. Y equals 2x minus 40. Again, hopefully this will be a good review of writing linear equations. Plus, it introduces you to these scatter plots and lines of best fit, because that's something you should recognize, these lines of best fit, scatter plots, trends going down or up. If you have questions, please do contact me and I will help you.